Discover the amazing transformation of a grandma, unexpected revenge that overcame trauma. Evelyn Johnson sat on a dusty floor surrounded by forgotten boxes, her fingers trembling as they unraveled decades of memories. The attic smelled of mothballs and time. She stumbled upon it, a lonely box containing brushes, tubes of paint, and crumpled canvases she had long abandoned in pursuit of stability. Once a vibrant dream of becoming an artist, her heart now ached with the weight of her husband's sudden departure. As she opened the box, her breath hitched. Here lay fragments of herself, whispers of laughter and creativity buried under years of duty. Could she really unlock her artistry again at 65? A reluctant flame began to flicker within her as she squeezed a tube of paint, vibrant colors spilling forth like her tears, each one a reflection of her suppressed sorrow. But doubt clawed at her insides, each brush stroke felt both liberating and terrifying. Could her creations ever be worthy of the spotlight? Memories of her late husband's unwavering support urged her forward, yet the haunting laughter of Derek, the local artist who had belittled her dreams, danced mockingly in her mind. Not serious art, he'd sneered, dismissing her work without a second glance. How could she rise above that if she had already been cast aside? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Evelyn's heart thudded as she mulled over the idea of organizing her own exhibition. It wasn't about revenge, she told herself. Yet, the trembling urge for validation gnawed at her conscience. Was she seeking attention to drown out Derek's ridicule, or was this a true call of self-discovery? Embracing her newfound purpose, she decided to share not only her paintings but the stories of her mother and grandmother, ordinary women who had battled extraordinary odds. Who would come to see her collection? Would Derek even show up? As the day drew closer, the buzzing excitement in Maplewood was palpable. Yet Evelyn felt weightless, alternating between anticipation and crushing self-doubt. What if no one cared? What if her work simply reaffirmed Derek's scorn? The more she reflected on her late-night doubts, the more tangled her emotions became. Each brush stroke felt heavier with the knowledge that her desire to paint was intertwined with a fierce rebellion against years of silence. Evelyn discovered old letters while sifting through her mother's belongings, flickering shadows of unfulfilled dreams directly mirroring her own conflicts. Would drawing upon their trials dredge up her fears or empower her? As storm clouds loomed overhead, her anxiety escalated. Should she stand tall against the criticism and unveil her heart to the world, or hide rather than confront a truth she feared was destined for disapproval? With the night before her art show closing in, tension coiled tight within her, raw, electric. The storm outside raged, matching her inner turmoil. The paintbrush felt like a loaded weapon in her hand, and her resolve was slipping. Tomorrow would reveal everything, the culmination of her courage and struggle. It dawned on her, she was on the brink of transformation, yet at what cost? The stakes couldn't be higher as Evelyn faced the turning point, one that could shatter her family's legacy or finally set her free. Evelyn awoke to the sound of rain tapping against her window, an echo of her restless thoughts. The memory of her husband's unwavering support enveloped her like a warm cloak, but today, more than ever, she felt his absence keenly. After all these years, she wished he were here, his steady smile and encouraging words warding off the dread pulling in her chest. As the shadows of the morning stretched across her room, she couldn't shake the feeling that the storm outside mirrored her turmoil within. She arose, her body heavy with the uncertainties of what lay ahead. Each step felt weighted as if the air itself conspired to hold her back. Picking up her paintbrush, she drew small circles on a canvas, her hands trembling as they gripped the handle. This moment felt sacred, yet precarious, a fragile line between a passionate revival and an impending disaster. The thought of revealing her art, a representation of timeless battles, hidden stories, and her own journey, was both thrilling and terrifying. Every detail in her small studio screamed for attention, an ultimatum for her dormant aspirations. The crumpled canvases waited patiently, and the brushes stood ready, as if daring her to defy every negative whisper that had ever haunted her. An image emerged of herself on the precipice, poised to take the leap, confronting fears that had long paralyzed her. Amid this inner storm, the memory of Derek Esnier emerged as a thief in the night, stealing her confidence. His dismissive words echoed in her mind, shaking her fragile resolve. She forced herself to confront the truth behind his ridicule. It wasn't merely a dismissal of her art but a rejection of her very self. The realization sent a jolt of energy coursing through her veins, igniting a spark of defiance. Could she not let his disdain snuff out her flame of creativity any longer? As she began to paint, layers of vibrant colors intertwined, building a rich tapestry of emotions. The strokes became bolder, reflecting her struggle, her yearning, and every ounce of pain that had attended her growth. She was learning to harness her voice, unearthing experiences her mother and grandmother had buried deep beneath the burdens of generational expectations. Art was not just a personal venture, it was a reclamation of their stories woven through her own. Hours slipped away, the rhythm of her brush accentuating the heartbeat of a long-suppressed artist rising within. The painted canvas unveiled a fierce woman who, much like her ancestors, had fought for her place in a world that far too often stifled creativity. Each color choice became a conscious act of rebellion against the fears that had bound her for so long. She wasn't merely an artist, she was a storyteller, and today, with every brush stroke, she reclaimed the narrative. As the afternoon waned into a golden twilight, a sense of clarity washed over her. Evelyn was determined to embrace not just her art, but the very essence of who she was. The fear of failure dulled beneath the light of her newfound revelation. She could transform pain into power. With renewed vigor, she prepared for the unveiling, the doubts still whispering but overtaken by her burgeoning self-belief. Tomorrow, she would stand before her community and witness whether the seeds of bravery she had sown would bloom in the eyes of others. That night, Evelyn couldn't sleep. The clock ticked relentlessly, reminding her that she was on the brink of something extraordinary. With the exhibition looming, she was acutely aware that facing Derek was inevitable. What if he belittled her again? What if he dismissed her efforts with the same disdain? Her confrontation with him transcended the gallery, it became a mirror reflecting her past fears and her resolute journey forward. Before the first light of dawn, Evelyn stood before her canvases, resolved. The time had come to face not just her critics, but herself, and to discover what she was truly made of. Evelyn stood in front of her canvases, a meandering breeze from the slightly ajar window whispering across her skin as dawn broke. This was at the moment her shadow-shrouded past would step into the light of her artistic expression. Seizing her breath, she felt the raw agitation of anticipation mingle with her determination. Today wasn't just an exhibition, it was her declaration of resilience against not only Derek but against every echo of her past. Breakfast disappeared in a blur, her thoughts entangled with the possibility of what lay ahead. She rehearsed her lines under her breath, mentally crafting responses to the potential criticisms. Curled up in the corner of her mind, the remnants of fear clung tightly, yet she churned them into resolve. They were reminders of where she had come from, not barriers to her growth. The drive to the gallery seemed endless, with each mile intensifying her internal debate. What if Derek didn't show up? What if he did and she faltered? The questions cascaded, pressing against her psyche like an unruly tide. She recognized these spirals, a familiar cycle of self-doubt, but today was different. Each twist of her thoughts sputtered like the brush on canvas, confronting her with the fulfillment of her own narrative. As she arrived, the gallery loomed ahead, its whitewashed walls stark against the chaos of her emotions. Stepping inside, she felt the air shift, swelling with a mix of optimism and anxiety. She inhaled deeply, a practiced motion that ignited a flicker of courage within. Unveiling her artworks felt like stripping away the layers of her identity and exposing the raw, vulnerable heart beneath. Each piece was an intimate revelation, a journey of transformation frozen in vibrant hues and intricate details, whispering secrets of the woman in her lineage. Attendees milled around, curiosity etched upon their faces, their eyes reflecting an inviting intrigue. Time slipped away as she absorbed the reactions. Gasps of awe and murmurs of admiration began echoing through the space, soothing the nerves diving deep within her chest. But then, there he was, Derek. The familiar silhouette emerged in the corner of her vision, and she steadied herself. He sauntered through the gallery, eyebrows raised with thinly veiled contempt. The sneer she had long dreaded was poised at the edge of his lips, but Evelyn stood firm. She was not the woman he once belittled. She was an artist with purpose and passion now rippling through her very being. "Is this what you call art?" he questioned, feigning amusement as he approached. The tension coiled tightly around her, but Evelyn clung to the empowerment she had unearthed in her creative journey. "What I call art," she replied steadily, "is the reclamation of my voice. It's a powerful reflection of my experiences and those of women like me." His smile faltered briefly, and for a moment, she saw something softer flicker behind his bravado, perhaps even a hint of regret. But before she could savor this ephemeral insight, he dismissed her work with a waved hand, detailing his impressive critique that only served to reveal his insecurity. She felt a pulse of indignation rise within her, a fierce protective instinct over her story that reached beyond the confines of petty dismissals. Evelyn responded with a quiet strength. "Your opinion doesn't define me." The words echoed in the gallery space, her voice steady but resonant. In that instant, she understood that his scorn was an echo of her own fears, one she would no longer hold close. As the exhibition continued, she witnessed her art evoking powerful emotions among the viewers. Tears flowed, conversations ignited, connections formed. Each exchange reminded her of the community of voices that had long been silenced. They were now rising from the shadows, and in this growing chorus, she found pieces of herself reflected in others. With each present moment, Evelyn motivated herself beyond defense. She had transformed her suffering into empowerment, but there was still an unpredictability in the air, a sensation that a larger confrontation was brewing. What had started as an exhibit of her art was morphing into an unveiling of deeper truths, including the possibility of facing her own limitations. What would this newfound strength reveal about her future? Today would mark a bold step forward, but would it be enough to redefine her journey? As she navigated through conversations, a lingering question echoed in her mind: how far had she truly come, and how would she cross the next threshold of her evolution? As the last of the guests trickled out, Evelyn stood alone in the dim light of the gallery, allowing the silence to wash over her. The hum of conversations had faded, leaving a void that felt both unsettling and liberating. She glimpsed into the reflections of her surroundings, the artwork, and herself. Despite the success of the exhibition, her mind fixated on Derek, the way his dismissal had momentarily threatened to unravel her newfound assertiveness. That chill of self-doubt had skittered into her thoughts, shadows of inadequacy creeping back into focus. What if he was right, she questioned, probing into the wound she thought had healed. A deep breath steadied her resolve, anchoring her once more. "Your opinion doesn't define me," she whispered to the empty room, forcing herself to embody her own words. The impact of her statement reverberated in her mind, each repetition a lifeline thrown amidst turbulent waters. She always wrestled with external validation, but now, the dance of confidence and doubt was wild, a blend of exhilaration and fatigue. The victories were starting to accumulate, yet the inner turmoil persisted. In the days following her exhibition, Evelyn threw herself into her craft with fervor. Each stroke on the canvas was both an expression of joy and an exorcism of dread, pulling her deeper into her identity as an artist. Submerged in vibrant colors and swirling emotions, she began a series exploring the themes of recovery and resilience, narratives extending beyond her own. Each piece became more than an exploration of her journey, it became a statement of triumph over fear, a pathway to deeper self-discovery. But this new direction also compelled her to confront aspects she had long avoided. She spent hours late into the night wrestling with an irresistible need to delve into her story's darker corners, those buried experiences that had shaped her, yet remained tucked away in the recesses of her mind. It propelled her to revisit her journal entries from years ago, pieces of her past laced with anger, hurt, and confusion. With each word she penned, she felt as if she was both revisiting and rewriting her story, a double helix of catharsis and revelation. During these sessions, Evelyn stumbled upon a remnant of the old Derek letters he'd sent that were fraught with condescension and half-hearted apologies from when she had first attempted to break free. As she read through the pages, a surge of anger erupted within her. The emotions she had thought subdued surged to the surface, the feelings that had kept her tethered to her past, the fears he had instilled that lingered like shadows in her life. Confronting these emotions prompted something within her. It wasn't merely about reclaiming her art but reclaiming her narrative. A fire flared, a powerful idea igniting. She resolved to create a new exhibition, one that would not only showcase her artwork but also tell her unfiltered story. She would publicly reclaim the voice Derek had tried to silence, an unapologetic affirmation of her journey through trauma and into empowerment. This was her chance not just to express, but to confront him without needing his acknowledgement or approval. As plans for the new exhibition unfolded, the exhilaration of her creative flow was metamorphosing into a construction of a new pathway, one with purpose and clarity. The canvas was no longer merely a reflection of her resilience, but an intricate tapestry of vulnerability, strength, and ultimately, revenge against the constraints she had once accepted. In the midst of this exhilarating transformation, a knock echoed through her studio, disrupting the focused rhythm of her creative flow. She reluctantly peeled herself away from the fires of inspiration, curiosity piqued. Who would dare intrude on her sacred space of rebirth? With a surge of adrenaline, she approached the door, heart racing with anticipation and uncertainty. What awaited her on the other side could shift the tides of her journey yet again. Evelyn hesitated before the door, her pulse quickening with a mix of anxiety and determination. She peered through the peephole, almost expecting to see Derek's familiar silhouette, a ghost of her past threatening to dismantle the progress she had fought so hard to achieve. But when she swung open the door, it was a stranger, a woman in her late 50s, her face soft with an aura of sincerity and resilience. "Hi, I'm Melinda," the stranger introduced herself, her voice tinged with warmth. "I saw your exhibition the other night. It inspired me. Can I come in?" Evelyn blinked, momentarily taken aback. She nodded hesitantly and stepped aside, uncertain about this unexpected interruption. As Melinda stepped inside, Evelyn felt a blend of curiosity and wariness wash over her. "I know it's strange to just show up like this, but I've been searching for someone who understands," Melinda continued, her eyes scanning the canvases that adorned the studio walls. "Your work, it resonated with me. I've faced my own battles." Intrigued, Evelyn drew a deep breath, pushing aside her apprehension. "What kind of battles?" she inquired, her tone softening as she sensed a shared connection. Melinda's expression deepened, the weight of her past etched on her features. "Years in a marriage that stifled my spirit, much like the experience of being an artist trapped in someone else's narrative. It took me too long to reclaim my voice. I want to help others not to take as long as I did." The truth in Melinda's words struck a chord within Evelyn. Her own journey had ventured into treacherous territories, and here was a kindred spirit willing to share her wisdom and scars. As they delved into conversation, ideas began to spark, a symphony of shared experiences that felt momentous. "Maybe we could collaborate," Evelyn suggested, the excitement stirring in her voice. "I want to create this new exhibition that reveals my story, unfiltered, and I feel like your journey could amplify that message. We could inspire others. The suggestion hung in the air, a tangible force. Melinda's face brightened. Yes. Together, we can weave a narrative that not only empowers us but also empowers others trapped in silence. The prospect of collaboration breathed new life into Evelyn's vision. As they exchanged stories, Evelyn realized the greater purpose that had emerged from her recent turmoil. The art was no longer just hers, it became a collective tapestry of resilience, showcasing diverse stories of reclamation. Yet, beneath the excitement lurked an undercurrent of discomfort. Would sharing the stage with someone else dilute her voice? The nagging question gnawed at her. She desperately wanted to embrace the momentum while guarding her authenticity. However, she had already taken such strides, the fear seemed smaller against the blaze of possibility. As we explore this new terrain, I need to remain true to my narrative, Evelyn asserted, her voice steady as she spoke to Melinda. This is my story, and I cannot lose sight of where it began. Melinda met her gaze with understanding. We will find balance. Your voice is crucial here. I want to overshadow it, just as I want my story to be heard too. This is a partnership, not a competition. Evelyn nodded, comforted by Melinda's assurance. As they began outlining their collaborative vision, a sense of empowerment began to build within her, each brushstroke, each narrative thread interlacing to create something more profound than either of them could have dreamt alone. The path lay before her and, for the first time in a long while, she felt the excitement of possibilities ahead of her. Yet, as she sat back, pondering the intricacies of melding their stories, a thought intruded, sinister and chilling. What if Derek caught wind of this new exhibition? What if he attempted to undermine her once again, like before? With a sharp intake of breath, Evelyn resolved to guard her heart and art fiercely. The time had come to face not just the ghosts of her past but the very real fears that could resurface and derail her progress. She glanced at Melinda, her newfound ally, steeling herself for whatever challenges might arise. Together, they would push through. And as they forged ahead, the specter of Derek loomed ominously in the shadows, potent and unresolved. The exhibition was only the beginning, it was the crucible where both of their stories would collide, and only one outcome could prevail. What lay ahead would test not only their resolve but their very definitions of strength and truth. Evelyn and Melinda spent the next few weeks in an immersive blur of brainstorming sessions, late-night conversations, and decisions that would shape their joint artistic endeavor. The energy in the studio fluctuated, sometimes electric, other times heavy with the weight of their vulnerabilities. Each meeting drove Evelyn deeper into the realization that collaboration was both a catalyst and a potential hindrance. As they outlined the first pieces for the exhibition, Evelyn found herself oscillating between hope and a shadow of doubt. Melinda had a knack for digging into the emotional core of their narratives, urging Evelyn to confront moments she hadn't been ready to revisit. One evening, while sifting through sketches, Evelyn paused, a new thought igniting within her. What if we depict our battles as individual pieces but create a shared visual motif? She suggested, her voice steady yet edged with uncertainty. Something that ties our stories together without overshadowing our unique journeys. Melinda nodded thoughtfully, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Yes. It can be a thread of color that runs through our pieces, symbolizing the connection between our experiences. Evelyn felt a flicker of determination. Ideas began cascading, overwhelming but exhilarating. They sketched and scrapped ideas, their laughter mingling alongside moments of painstaking honesty. For the first time, Evelyn felt the chaos of her conflicting emotions align into clarity. She never anticipated that sharing her artistic space would unravel so many definitions of self. Yet, with every brushstroke planned, every narrative woven, she sensed an unspoken threat lurking at the edges. Derek and the embodiment of her past. One afternoon, consumed by the creative whirlwind, Evelyn paused to look around her studio. The walls lined with her unfinished work stood as silent reminders of previous struggles. Here, she had once found solace amid the chaos of her life, absorbing pain into each carefully placed stroke. Now, it felt like a fragile tower, ready to crumble if exposed to the harsh light of scrutiny. The familiar doubt seeped into her thoughts, threatening to churn into self-doubt. Was she capable of sustaining her voice alongside Melinda's rising presence? With each passing day, the scars of her former life resurfaced, accompanied by flickers of apprehension around her evolving art. It was like standing on the precipice of a great unknown. "I need to be clear about my boundaries," she declared one afternoon, catching Melinda mid-sentence. "This narrative needs to be both of us, but it cannot overpower the rawness of my foundation." "I can't," Melinda interrupted gently. "You want tea. Your story is your own, Evelyn. As long as we communicate openly, we can balance our contributions." Evelyn sensed the truth in Melinda's words but struggled to fully embrace it. Would they truly find that balance, or would Melinda's voice gradually eclipse her own? The dichotomy of their partnership began to weigh heavily on her. As weeks turned into frenzied days leading to their opening, Evelyn committed to refining her individual pieces before melding them with Melinda's. Each canvas took on a life of its own, illustrating elements of both pain and hope. Yet, the ticking clock amplified a nagging urgency, and they both knew that the impact of their collaboration would stir beneath the surface of their work. Then, one evening, as they stood side by side in the studio, it happened. Evelyn received an email notification. The subject line sent a jolt through her: "Derek, we need to talk." Panic coursed through her, twisting her stomach into knots. The looming specter of confrontation had suddenly become unavoidable. Did he sense the shift in her life that was symbolized through this exhibition? Would he challenge everything she had fought to reclaim? As she looked at Melinda, the gravity of the moment hung between them, challenging Evelyn to confront not just her past but the reality of her present and future. The air thickened with the weight of uncertainty, and Evelyn knew one thing for certain: this challenge would draw a line in the sand between her old life and the new one she yearned to build. How would she respond to Derek? Would she allow his presence to overshadow her moment of triumph, or would she finally assert her truth? The stakes were rising, and Evelyn stood at the crossroads of her own transformation. The moment Evelyn saw Derek's name on her screen, a tidal wave of emotions crashed over her, overwhelming the creative energy that had been humming vibrantly in the studio moments before. She pulled in a breath, attempting to ground herself, but the years of their shared history loomed large, complicating the solidity of her newfound resolve. What did he want, she thought, each unformed conjecture slithering into her mind. Derek had always possessed an innate ability to infuse uncertainty into her decisions, and as if on cue, the memories of him flooded back: his dismissiveness of her dreams, the way he downplayed her achievements. Would he deign to try and reclaim his hold over her now that she was on the cusp of a breakthrough? Melinda, perceiving the shift in Evelyn's demeanor, stepped closer, her voice a steady anchor. "Evelyn, you okay?" The concern in her eyes pierced through the chaos in Evelyn's head, drawing her back momentarily into the present. With a slight nod, Evelyn grasped for words. "It's Derek. He wants to talk." I thought I had pushed him out of my life for good." "You did, didn't you? This is your moment, not his." Melinda's encouragement rang with conviction, but Evelyn found it hard to absorb. Part of her craved the strength Melinda exuded, while another part felt the old fears flickering, a ghost rapping at her door. "I don't know if I can withstand whatever he has gotten in his mind." Evelyn's voice trembled, echoing the doubt that hovered in the shadows. "What if he tries to sway me back into how I was?" "You face him with your truth, Evelyn. You've grown. He hasn't, remember that." Melinda's gaze was unwavering, a testament to sincerity, and it sparked a flicker of courage within Evelyn. Determined, she opened the email, her heart racing as words formed in her mind an unyielding declaration of her progress. Writing it down began to feel cathartic, transforming unease into resolve as she crafted a response laced with calm yet firm edges. I've moved forward. There's no room for you in this chapter of my life. But as she clicked send, a question nagged at her: was she truly ready for whatever confrontation this might bring? The very notion of Derek's presence ignited a storm of dread and anticipation. The ground beneath felt unsteady, as if shifting her away from the durability of her reclaiming identity. Shaking off the lingering fear, Evelyn shifted her focus back to her canvases. Each stroke became a rebellion against the tension boiling inside her. The colors transformed into declarations, vivid manifestations of all she had cultivated: pain, strength, and a fierce hope for a future unfettered by her past. The lingering doubt of whether she would survive this confrontation with dignity was replaced by a burgeoning faith in her ability to voice her story, even if the echoes of Derek loomed large. With every inch brushed upon the canvas, Evelyn felt exposed yet invigorated. No longer was she hiding behind the comfort of familiar wounds, she was confronting them, laying them bare, and asserting her narrative with undeniable intensity. Yet, the remnants of Derek's influence scratched at her peace, igniting questions of whether she could confront the past without unraveling the present. At that moment, Melinda broke her concentration. This will all culminate at the exhibition, and we can't let the past dampen our light. We shine together, right? Evelyn drew a breath, inhaling not just air but courage. Right. But that affirmation slipped away as Derek's previous approximation of power lingered in her mind. As the night deepened, the shadows within her studio echoed the threats of impending confrontation. Just as clarity began to coalesce, her phone buzzed again. Another notification, a message from Derek: meet me tomorrow at the old cafe. Evelyn's heart sank. The moment had arrived when she defaced her past not just through her artwork but in flesh and blood. She stood suspended between anticipation and dread, the walls of her studio closing in like the news of an unfinished picture. What would she choose? Would she reclaim her autonomy and cement the boundaries now, or slacken under old pressures? The stakes escalated, placing her at a pivotal juncture in her transformation. Tomorrow would not just be a meeting, it would be a confrontation of old demons and a test of her rebirth. Would Evelyn find the strength to emerge victorious, or would the ghosts of her past pull her back into familiar turmoil? Evelyn spent the rest of the evening pacing the room, analyzing every possible outcome of her meeting with Derek. Each scenario painted a different version of her future, and she felt caught between hope and fear, like a ship oscillating on turbulent water. The safe harbor she had built for herself felt fragile, at risk of being shattered by the very person she had fought to escape. As she lingered over her artwork, one canvas in particular drew her attention, a representation of her journey, layered with vibrant strokes and chaotic patterns that symbolized the tumult of her past. "This is my truth," she whispered, running her fingers over the rough texture, a physical testament to her struggles. Instead of leading her to retreat, the thought ignited the flame of determination within her. Sleep eluded her that night. Each time her mind began to quiet, the image of Derek, with his smug smile and dismissive glance, slithered through the gaps of her consciousness, pulling her back into moments of doubt. She recalled how, in those very moments, she had silenced her own voice for his comfort, a suffocating fog she refused to let settle over her again. Morning light seeped into her studio, awakening both her spirit and her apprehension. Standing before the mirror, she scrutinized her reflection. The circles under her eyes whispered stories of unrest, but behind the fatigue lay strength. This was the face of a woman who had endured and emerged with purpose, a woman willing to confront the source of her unease. She would not be shaken easily, the meeting would be a reckoning, not a surrender. Dressing deliberately in a bold red top, she aimed to channel her inner fire, wanting to wear something that symbolized courage. She paired it with denim jeans that hugged her curves, grounding herself with a sense of familiarity and strength. Every detail counted. This would be her armor against whatever Derek might throw at her. As she made her way to the old cafe, the familiarity of the surroundings flooded her with memories of happier times but was quickly overshadowed by anticipation. Each step echoed a beat of empowerment, a rhythmic reminder of her transformations. The cafe appeared before her as a landscape of shifting emotions, places where laughter fluttered like butterflies and where silent cries were hidden in over-corner shadows. Derek was already there, his figure hunched over a table, and she felt a twinge of weakness momentarily wash over her. Her resolve wavered at the sight of him. The way he rested his hand on his chin and his casual demeanor radiated confidence that had once made her second-guess her worth. But she needed to remember who she was now. She inhaled sharply, brushing the wave of self-doubt aside like dust on a shelf. The past could no longer dictate her present. As she approached him, each step solidified her intent. "Evelyn, can we talk?" he asked, a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes that she had seldom seen before. "I'm here," she replied, the quality of her voice betraying none of the turmoil swirling inside her. Derek smiled, but the air felt thick with unspoken challenges. She sat down, making sure to hold his gaze, fortified by the charge of the moment. They were not alone, echoing in this cafe. There were lingering conversations all around them, witnesses to their duel of wits and worlds. But as they exchanged pleasantries, Evelyn discerned something odd in his demeanor, a hint of desperation she hadn't expected. This moment was not merely about their past. It became increasingly clear that Derek was unmoored. She could either leverage his instability or immerse herself in her own story. The paths ahead diverged, each cradling different versions of her life, but one thing crystallized: the reclamation of her narrative was the cornerstone of her personal growth. Just as the phone buzzed with an unexpected notification, she felt a surge of determination rise within her. She was no longer a passenger on this ride, she was the driver. As she prepared to speak, every word hung in the air, suspense crackling around them, raising the stakes. What emerged would not just determine the outcome of this encounter but rewrite the future she had envisioned for herself. Would she harness this power to confront the old patterns commanding her life, or allow them one last chance to take the reins? As she straightened her shoulders, the path twisted once again before her, each decision and revelation leading to an inevitable clash. Did she dare to embrace her rediscovered strength and challenge Derek once and for all? Evelyn took a deep breath, centering herself in the moment. She had rehearsed her words 1,000 times, yet now they escaped her, jumbled and caught in the web of emotions swirling in her chest. The cafe around them buzzed with life, seemingly indifferent to the emotional turbulence unfolding at their table. She could almost hear the whispers of her past urging her to retreat, to slip back into the shadows, but she refused to listen. "Derek," she began, steadying her voice, "this meeting isn't just about us. It's about my journey, the changes I've made, and the person I've become." The words flowed with a newfound power, and she felt the weight of the red fabric against her skin, a reminder of her intent. He leaned back, folding his arms defensively. "You think you can just walk in here and lay all that on me?" he countered, his eyes narrowing. "You are still the same Evelyn. You can't just erase what happened." Her heart raced, but Evelyn held firm. "No, I'm not the same. I've spent too long letting you dictate my worth. It's time we stop playing these roles." The tremor in her voice faded, replaced by conviction. Each syllable fortified her resolve. She had remained silent for far too long. Derek's smile faded, replaced by a mask of confusion and frustration. "And what, exactly, do you think you're going to gain from this? Is it revenge? Closure?" The tone dripped with cynicism, and she could feel the old discarded patterns trying to resurface in her mind. Glimmers of her own growth sparked within her. She had worked tirelessly to build a healthier self-image, fortified by her art and passion. "It's not about revenge. It's about reclaiming my life," she countered, her voice rising slightly in pitch as the challenge hung in the air. Evelyn glanced around the cafe, noting the eyes that darted in their direction. This was her stage. She tightened her grip on the table, using it as an anchor. You don't get to define me anymore. I am the artist of my own story now. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Derek's face, betrayal of the confidence he wore like armor. He was a ghost from her past, dimming considerably under the weight of her words. The shift unnerved her, a part of her wishing he would emerge stronger, just to justify her past fears. What is it you want, then? He asked, jaw set, expression demanding clarity. Underneath the hostility, she detected an ember of vulnerability, one that mirrored her own struggle. Evelyn leaned in, feeling a whirlwind of dread and exhilaration. I want to show you that I've moved on. I won't be manipulated or cowed anymore. You need to confront your part in our history, too. The resolve that had once wavered became a steady flame. She would not retreat now. Each heartbeat propelled her forward, an ignition of something raw and authentic. She sensed the stakes growing higher, the dynamic morphing from adversarial to transformative. The confrontation she had envisioned, one filled with satisfaction or wrath, was morphing into something altogether different, a dialogue that veered towards the potential for accountability and understanding. The silence stretched between them, laden with the weight of unspoken truths. Evelyn found herself grappling with an internal conflict, to press on or to withdraw gracefully from the confrontation. But vulnerability, she realized, had value. If there was growth for her, perhaps there was space for him to reflect. A sudden surge of hope burgeoned within her as Derek's silence lingered. It was not yet the end of this story, and Evelyn refused to let the past consume her future. I'm ready to step into the light, Derek. Are you? She challenged, her gaze unyielding, ready for whatever truth he might reveal. As the air pulsed with unresolved tension, she faced a critical juncture. Would Derek respond with the truth she sought, or deflect it back into shadows? With this question hanging palpably in the air, the clatter nearby seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of them in a suspended moment. The outcome awaited. Her phone buzzed again, an unwelcome reminder of the outside world, but Evelyn remained fixated on Derek, pressing on against uncertainty. Here was the moment she had waited for, and whatever came next would lock her destiny tightly to every choice she made now. Would this encounter fracture the fragile illusion of the past, or would it fuel new beginnings she never imagined possible? Evelyn sat in the cafe, her heart pounding beneath her chest as the familiar figure of Derek hovered in her peripheral vision. The air was thick with tension, a palpable reminder of everything she had fought against. But now, she was not the woman he once belittled. This encounter was crucial, a defining moment where the shadow of her past would clash with the empowered self she had meticulously cultivated. Why are you really here, Derek? She was firm, her voice steady. She had practiced her words, but now they flowed with a natural confidence that surprised even her. You acted like I was replaceable, but I'm not. I've rebuilt my life without you, and I deserve to know if you can accept that. A flicker of vulnerability crossed his face, darting between confusion and something akin to regret. He was no longer the unwavering critic he used to be, but someone who seemed smaller, almost lost amid the shadows of his own choices. You think you can just cast me aside and ignore the past? He replied, his tone striving for dominance but faltering against her resolute gaze. Evelyn felt her pulse steadying, no longer enslaved by fear. No, I'm acknowledging it. I'm owning it. I can't erase the memories, but every stroke of my brush is me reclaiming my story. The past shaped me, but it will no longer confine or suppress me. I deserve more than the quiet life you dictated. His indignant expression softened as the weight of her words settled in. The years of her repression fought back through the armor of his dismissive exterior, and Evelyn relished the sight of his faltering confidence. This was her moment, no longer just a woman yearning for respect but a formidable artist making waves through her art and life. I saw your exhibition, Derek murmured finally. The admission hung in the air, a mix of surprise and caution threading through his voice. It wasn't what I expected. Evelyn's heart swelled with a mix of triumph and vulnerability. It was not just art, Derek. It was my voice. Each piece represented pain, resilience, and hope. You can't undermine that anymore. For the first time, she saw acknowledgement in his eyes. Perhaps, beneath layers of bravado, he sensed the fierce reality of her transformation. She recalled how his scorn had gouged deep into her spirit, almost extinguishing her flame. Now, that very flame radiated fiercely. Something shifted in the room. The energy around their table trembled, no longer just two former lovers but two individuals standing at critical junctures of their lives. The truth is, I've seen countless artists refuse to speak their stories, Derek admitted, the challenge in his tone softened. I always thought I was helping you, but I see I was only trying to fortify my own standing. The revelation, a moment of clarity echoing through the cafe, saturated the air between them. Evelyn recognized it. He was finally confronting his own failures. "This isn't about you," she replied firmly, though compassion churned beneath her words. "It's about all the voices stifled and silenced over the years." Derek met her gaze, and their shared history glimmered in the depths of his eyes. "It was never my intention to silence you," he finally said, a tremor breaking his facade. "I see that now. You've conquered far beyond what I understood." With each word they exchanged, Evelyn felt the threads of her past unravel. This was no longer a confrontation to win. It was a closure, crafting a bridge born of recognition. She had transformed her trauma into a palette of possibilities, and through these revelations, Derek was beginning to see it too. "Forgiveness isn't at the forefront of my mind, Derek. What I want is to create a legacy through my art that resonates far beyond this moment." Her voice held strong, unwavering like the strokes she had descended upon canvas days before. Derek's shoulders sank, but a hint of admiration flickered in his irises. "And you will. You're unstoppable." A smile broke over her face, genuine and unguarded. She wasn't just fighting back, she was flourishing against every expectation. "Thank you," she said softly. "That is all I needed to know, that my journey has changed something in you too." Evelyn took a breath, a cathartic wave washing over her. She had found closure in understanding, both for herself and for Derek, and in doing so, she cemented her growth. Instead of leaving embittered, she had taken a leap into mutual respect. As she stood to leave, the air around her felt different, lighter, almost electric with newfound empowerment. The shadow of Derek could no longer extend its reach over her brighter path. She could see it clearly now. Every step forward was built on resilience and creativity. Unfurling from the past, walking away, she felt not only a weight lifted but also an assurance that her artistic journey reflected a new purpose. She was a force capable of eliciting change not just in her life but potentially in the lives of others grappling with their narratives. Evelyn embraced her future with solid confidence, her artistry a testament to what she had overcome. This was not merely an end, this was a triumphant commencement rife with creative complexities yet to be explored. She had proven herself, and in doing so, she embraced her identity with exhilaration, and now it was time for her to share her story more broadly, to paint not just her canvases, but the lives of those who might still be wandering in silence. Are you moved by Evelyn's incredible journey? You need to subscribe now to our channel to catch more astonishing transformations and exclusive emotional stories that inspire and motivate. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm for more impactful content that uplifts and empowers. We want to hear your reactions and theories about the endings. Comment below with your thoughts. Don't wait even one more second to share this inspiring conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful resolution.